It's in our moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. What we choose to consume and put on display defines us and directs us. If we don't choose beneficial things, we'll never leave a mark worth honoring. What up, Black Man? I'm Jamal Calpin, and welcome to the Beneficial Black Man channel, where we focus on overcoming gray mediocrity to become beneficial for our community by discussing faith, creativity, personal development, and mental and emotional health management. I hope you are doing well. Hopefully, you're protecting your mental, finding time for an emotional release valve, and continuing to strive to become beneficial. So, I got this fortune a little while ago. It's a little beat up. I don't know if you can see it, but let's see. What's going on, Themis? It's not working. It's not working the way I want it to go. But it says, it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And I thought this was probably one of the more profound and good fortunes that I've gotten, from a fortune cookie or whatever. And I think it's so important because very often, if we're not intentional about how we're living our lives, we'll just coast. We'll just coast and we'll end up somewhere where we don't really want to be. And the thing is, to have the life that we want, we have to learn how to curate the things that we consume and curate the things that we put on display. You have to curate, decide, and manage the things that we consume and the things that we put on display. And so I'm going to be referencing a blog that I wrote a while ago, but I think it's still relevant to us today because we want to make better decisions in our life. Maybe there are things that we just don't like about where we are. Maybe it's the way that we look. Maybe it's the relationships. Maybe it can be anything. And I think one of the best ways that we can actually make better decisions and change our lives is by curating our life. And I want to share 4 steps to how we can curate our life. So, first, what does it mean to curate? The definition of curate from dictionary.com is to take charge of a museum or organization, an art exhibit, to pull together, sift through, and select for presentation as music or website content. We may not look at our lives or our souls as a museum or gallery to display art, but it is similar in an intangible way. What we choose to fill ourselves with is what we consume, and what we give to others is what we put on display. So, in the Bible, there's a parable that Jesus gives in the Gospels, and it's called the parable of the sower. And I'm going to read it real quick. But we see in that parable that there's different types of ground that a sower is trying to sow seed to. And good ground does a few things. One, it provides the right environment for growth, and 2, the growth is that growth is fruit bared for others. So let me read through this parable real quick. Let's see if I pull it up. Right. Okay, there we go. All right, this is Matthew chapter 13, and I'm going to be reading the English Standard Version because I think it's easier for people to listen to. King James is a lot sometimes. All right, the parable of the sower, verse 1. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea, and great crowds gathered about him, so that he got into a boat and sat down, and the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. Gonna jump down a little bit to verse 18. So his disciples were kind of like, why do you keep telling these crazy stories to people? I don't understand. You keep using all these parables and all these images. You talk about like sowers, and why don't you just tell stuff plainly? And Jesus says, it's really for the people who are supposed to hear it, and so on and so forth. But later they ask, all right, well, what was the deal with this sower parable? We don't understand it. Can you explain it to us? So Jesus obliges and he breaks it down for them. He says, and this is verse 18, still in the same chapter, hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what has been sown in his heart. This is what was sown along the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while. And when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. As for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and another 30. So the reason I think this parable is so applicable even to our own lives is because if we don't curate our souls, if we don't curate our lives, the things that we consume, we may very well produce bad fruit, or we might not produce anything good at all. So, going back to this blog post, trees and vines don't produce fruit for themselves. The fruit that's produced is used to feed something, or at the bare minimum, used to spread more seed. When we're working on the soil of our soul, we must take that into consideration. And I believe it lines up with us becoming more beneficial and living beneficial lives for glory and for good. We're to bear fruit to glorify God and to help others. Based off of that parable, we need to be good ground to bear fruit, whether that's a little fruit or a lot of fruit. The ground, the soil, our soul has a lot to do with that, which is why it's important that we curate and take care of what our ground, our soul, looks like. So ultimately, it's our responsibility. We're held responsible for the decisions that we make. We're held responsible for the fruit of our souls. We can either try to figure out what's best by ourselves through years of trial and error, or we can follow the guidance and leadership of the Most High or leaders or, helpful people in our lives. The main source, in my opinion, the main source of instruction regarding curating our lives is given in the scriptures. There are many scriptures and examples that provide helpful truth and wisdom for us to apply to our lives. I think the book of Proverbs is a great tool and resource to help us understand like what might be beneficial and what's not beneficial. As we glean and gather from the good book, we can make changes as necessary, but we first must acknowledge the responsibility that we have to guard our hearts, to guard our souls, and to curate those things. With maturity comes greater responsibility. Was the Spider-Man saying, with great power comes great responsibility? It's true, even in our individual lives. We don't necessarily have to be superheroes to have responsibility or have power, especially as men. We are given a lot of privilege that we don't even realize often. That as men, a lot of guys like to talk about the significance and the value of men. It's like, oh, yeah, we're the protectors and the providers and stuff. Well, if that is the case, then you have privilege and you're supposed to be using it to serve other people, not gloating about it and not hanging it over other people's, heads. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to use this power to provide, this ability to protect, to actually protect and serve and actually have an impact on people's lives, not to oh yeah, I'm just the ish. Like, no, you're supposed to go out and serve other people. Where was I? With maturity comes greater responsibility. I'm learning still that there are certain expectations we're held to as we grow and mature in this life, whether that's spiritually or naturally. One of the responsibilities we have as we strive for beneficial living is to make sure we have good ground in our lives. Next part, identify the bad. So in curating your life, something that curating your life, it takes time and effort. I'm personally still in the process of trying to get my own life together constantly, day by day. Like I'm still working on it. I want to make sure that you all know that I'm also striving to become a beneficial black man. Seriously, like I've mentioned this before, but the beneficial black man is an ideal that I'm striving for, and that I encourage other men to strive for too. It's not easy, but it is a worthy cause. I want to do my best to glorify God and provide some good to those around me too. Curating our lives is just one of the many ways to help us move forward. After we realize the need to take responsibility for the fruit of our lives, the next thing we must do is identify the bad things hindering us from bearing good fruit. All of us, no matter the circumstances of our lives, have negative influences that affect the fruit we're able to produce. Some influences are big, and others insignificantly small. But regardless of the size, they get in the way of what we're trying to do. Uh, thank you. And hello there, everybody. Hello, Themis, and hello, Afro Butterfly. And thank you for this. I'm trying to use my privilege well. I'm trying to. Where was I? Okay, yeah. So yes, we have to identify the bad and we have to identify the problems. So the most important thing in dealing with any issue is accurately identifying the actual problem. I'm sure many of us have had a headache, which we like to deal with as soon as possible. Some may reach for aspirin or other forms of medication to fix a problem. Although the symptoms may go away, sometimes a few hours later the headache comes back throbbing worse than before. The symptoms may have been addressed, but the specific problem hasn't been solved. The real issue could be a lack of sleep, a lack of food, a lack of water, and the list could go on. To successfully deal with that issue, you must pinpoint the source of the problem. The same method can be used when identifying the bad things we need to curate out of our lives. Like, it requires us to dig deep and see, is this, I'll just use an example. Is this show that I'm watching actually leading to more anxiety in my life? So if I keep watching, when I was younger, I used to have a huge fear of aliens. Huge fear of aliens. Anything super sci-fi kind of stuff, I couldn't deal with it. So I wasn't a big fan of the X Files or anything like that, which is strange now because I'm really into sci-fi stuff. But at the time, I if I watched anything related to aliens or the existence of paranormal activity, I could not sleep at all. I couldn't do it. I didn't like being in the dark by myself. I didn't like any of this stuff. And so eventually, that kind of stuff wore on me. It impacted my life. But I had to get to the root of it. Like, I have a fear of this stuff. I have a deep seated fear of the unknown. And if I keep consuming those kind of things, if I keep putting that stuff in my life, how am I gonna be okay? So you gotta take that stuff out. This is true, right? So this is very true. The aliens are here. So I don't know if all of my childhood fears are now going to be actualized, or maybe I'm just in a better place now. I don't know. But yes, there's that is a whole other conversation for a different day. But yes, we gotta identify the problems. So next, what are bad things? There is a wide array of negative influences that can be present in our lives. Listing everyone is a bit beyond my current ability because it depends on everybody's circumstance. Some things influence other people negatively, other things not so much. But we need to be aware of that. In the parable of the sower, there are three things that keep fruit from growing. There are fowls or birds, stony places, and thorns. Fowls or birds are described as the wicked one that takes away the good seed that God gives. A stony place is ground with rocks and stones that keep roots from growing deep. Thorns are the cares of this world and deceitful riches that choke the seed the Most High gives us, preventing growth. And I'll try to give some practical connection examples. So for fowls or birds, negative that can be negative people who attempt to take truth from you. There are some people in our circles, whether they're cynical, fearful, or just mean, that'll shoot down any truth and positivity in our lives. Some, people call them haters. So say you have a dream or you have an idea to do something great in your life, or even use an example in regards to men. Say you want to do something nice for your lady, right? You want to buy her flowers or whatever. You want to take her out on a nice date. There are clowns online. Yeah, I call them clowns. There are clowns online who are like, "Yo, don't do that. You're a simping. Don't treat women like that. Don't do this." Those are foul. Like those are silly men who are sharing stuff to keep you from doing something that is actually beneficial for your relationship and for your life. You got to get rid of that stuff. You got to get rid of those people speaking in your ears, right? Then there are examples of stones and rocks. Stones and rocks could be false expectations and lies. These stones can lead to bitterness and resentment in our lives, which affect the way that we view God and even treat others. One major example, something that I've experienced, is for us as millennials, because I am a millennial, there there was a huge expectation for us to follow the advice of the generation from us from before, which is like go to college, do these things, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. And if you do all these things based off of the advice that we have given you, everything should work perfectly fine in your life. That didn't happen. That didn't happen to a lot of people. And even though there was good intention behind it, there were these high expectations that were set up in our lives that reality kind of just cut under us. And that can impact us. That can lead to cynicism. That can lead to bitterness. And we have to watch out for those things. We have to check the expectations that we have in our lives. We have to check the things that we're believing, to really see if they're really true or if they might just be lies, you know? And next or last of those three things are thorns. And the practical example I gave for that is social media comparison. Being caught up on the trends and waves of social media can be very detrimental to our well-being and our soul. Whether it's keeping us whether it's keeping up with the Joneses or constant FOMO. I don't even think people use FOMO anymore. FOMO anymore. That's probably how old you can tell this blog post is. Slowly but surely, we can be choked and squeezed into perfectionism, doubt, and even depression. As I mentioned before, there are many more things that can have negative influence on our souls. These things can hinder growth in our life if they go unchecked, and we don't keep them out of the soil of our soul. Although there are many bad things to curate out of our life, there are things that help us make our life good ground. Um, let's see. Afro Butterfly says simp definition still unclear. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think they just. I still. It makes me confused and annoyed when people like to call what's his name? Is it Russell Wilson? I think that's his name. A simp. Like he's six. Which it doesn't make sense to me because if I'm not mistaken, I feel like he fits the definition of what would be considered a high value man. He makes a lot of money. He has a lot of connections. He has a beautiful wife and relationship. He makes good impact on the world, but he's a simp. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm confused. But like I don't know. I don't know, but hey, maybe it's, again, they're just foul. They're just, haters, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, getting back to this. So, the next thing is identifying what is good. Similar to identifying the bad things we need to curate out of our lives, we need to identify what is good. Like art, there is some criteria used to mark something as good. Whether that standard is agreed upon from person to person. Art can be subjective. Some people think modern art is good, some people think certain musicians or artists are good, and people may disagree. Whatever. Um, but there has to be some kind of rule or standard set, you know. Even when it comes to YouTube, there's certain standards of like, oh, this YouTuber has good quality, you have good light. Like I'm trying to use a ring light now, even though it's kind of weird because I don't like, now I got the rings in my glasses, but it's helping me not to look so shadowy and dark, like I'm a creep somewhere. But anyways, there's certain standards to help things, be good or whatever. When it comes to elements in our life that influence the production of good fruit, once again, I think a good place to look for is in the scriptures, or again, look for other people who are doing good things in their life. You can use them as a reference. When looking at the sower parable found in Matthew 13, the last place where seed was planted is in good ground. That word good has many meanings in the Greek: beautiful, handsome, excellent, eminent, choice, surpassing, precious, useful, suitable, commendable, and admirable. The one that really stands out to me is useful, which makes sense because the ground is actually useful to produce good fruit. And as I've mentioned before, even with this channel, you want to be a beneficial black man. You want to be a useful black man, something that is doing good and impacting the world around you and for something bigger than yourself. Good things are beneficial and useful to help us grow and live the life we're destined to live. A part of living a beneficial life is to live for the good of others. Simply put, we're striving to be useful or beneficial to those around us. Okay, a couple of things about good. The good can appear difficult. Although good things are readily available for us to consume and put on display, it often appears to require more effort and work than bad things. For example, believing a lie can be easy, while the truth usually requires a lot of facts, supporting evidence, and reliable witnesses. When we weigh the difference between a lie and the truth, we can admit one is more beneficial than the other. Curating your life, curating your life so that it is full of the good will take work, and it may seem hard at times, but the overall benefit is worth it. You may have to put in the hard work to break up the things in your life to get what's good. The hard work will yield good fruit 30, 60, 100 fold. Again, referencing that scripture. The good also requires patience. Seeing the fruit of curating your life for the better will take time. Some decisions you will make will produce instant results, while other efforts will require patience. Um, skip that. Okay. I was making a comparison between like um, slow cooking things and using a microwave. So even though you can use a microwave to warm something up, it won't compare to a good home cooked meal, something that's cooked in the oven or cooked on the stone, cooked on the stove. It just doesn't. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Curating our lives will help us to bear fruit that others will find delicious and very beneficial. So curating your life is a process more like slow cooking than quick and microwave. We must endure the process to get to that place, though. So in curating lives, we have to be patient. Good things come in all shapes and sizes, ranging from books, movies, conversations, and even the thoughts that we have. We can choose to enrich ourselves with that which, yeah, sorry, I gotta read that over again. Ranging from books, movies, conversations, and even the thoughts that we have. We can choose to enrich ourselves with that which is good, beneficial, and useful. A scripture that often helps me as a standard or ruler for identifying what can be good is Philippians 4:8. I will pull that up real quick because I'm going to try to quote it and I'm going to get it wrong. But let me pull it up quickly. And again, thank you all for joining me here on this live. I hope you all are having a wonderful day thus far. Last I checked, the weather outside was okay. Hopefully, the heat wave has died down for a little bit. But okay, this is Philippians. Okay, I'll just get rid of myself altogether. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Finally, brothers and ladies, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And that is a tool that I've used for myself very often to identify things that are good and things that are like helpful and beneficial. Let's see. Okay. So ultimately, before I keep going and start to wrap up this episode, oh, cool. And shout out to my lovely wife. Hi. The weather was beautiful this morning. Oh, great. Hopefully it's still okay. It's probably hot and humid now, but hi there. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Joining us, joining me. Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry. Let's get back on track. All right. Why it's important to curate your life. Earlier, I discussed the importance of taking responsibility of curating our lives. One of the main reasons we need to curate our lives is because the fruit we bear will impact the lives of others. We may not mind the things we personally consume and like to fill ourselves with. So the stuff that you watch on TV or the food that you eat, whatever, we may not take into consideration those kind of things. But what we take in will eventually be put on display. So the music you listen to, the books that you read, the stuff that you watch on TV, shoot, even the stuff that you eat will eventually put itself on display in your life. For that reason, it's important that we're careful of what we're taking in and what we're sharing. Um, okay, I'll just read this. I was reminded of this fact recently while watching a movie with my wife. Alicia, this was a while ago, but you'll probably remember this. We're both fans of movies, right? We have different tastes in movies, but we like to stay home and enjoy, something on Netflix or whatever together. My wife, Alicia, is a big fan of rom coms and more family friendly movies, while I at times lean more towards action and some intense drama. And what I mean by intense dramas are movies like Goodfellas, A Beautiful Mind, and most Quentin Tarantino films. Okay? It's giving you a little perspective. A question that I should ask myself: would this be bad for someone I love? Okay, so one night I suggested that we watch the movie Pulp Fiction. It's a classic Tarantino film, one of my favorite movies. But I didn't take into consideration whether this would be a beneficial movie for my wife to watch. A good portion of the movie, she was covering her eyes or looking away from the screen. It led to a little tiff between us because I didn't want her to miss the important parts of the movie. Because, like, with a lot of movies, and especially Tarantino films, the dialogue and the story really matters. It took until afterwards for me to realize that this was something bad I was introducing into the soil of my wife's soul. Yeah, that sounds pretty intense, but it is true. Um, I thought the movie was good. I still think the movie is good, but after that scenario, after that situation, I became more mindful of the things that I just can't watch with her. And I have to be careful that I'm not consuming too much stuff that could rub out, come off or impact her. For example, if I'm watching something in like a living room area, if it's something that I know may have a lot of violence in it or scary images or whatever, I won't watch it if she's around because I don't want her to look at the screen and be like, "This is bad," and she has nightmares and stuff. I don't want to do that. That's not helpful. And so we have to ask ourselves about what we're taking in. Would this be bad for someone I love? If what I'm watching would be unfruitful for someone else, especially someone I could be influencing with my own fruit, it may not be beneficial for me either. So when we're curating our lives, these are 4 steps we should follow. First, assess using our 5 senses. Now that we can identify good and bad influences, we must critically assess what we're consuming. The main ways that we consume things are through our 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. For very practical steps, we'll focus on sight and hearing. We must test what we're currently viewing and listening to. Is the music we're listening to beneficial? Movies we're watching, podcasts we're listening to, books we're reading. Assessing is difficult because it's hard to admit if something is good or bad for our own soul, especially if it's something we've enjoyed for a long time. 2. Cut out the bad. Once we've identified the bad influences, we must cut them out. No mercy. Cut them off as soon as you possibly can. Don't let it linger. The longer we second guess and give those things time to settle, it becomes more difficult to let them go. If you have music you don't think is beneficial for you to take, if you have music that you don't think is beneficial for you, take it off your playlist. I even do this now when I'm listening to stuff like on Spotify. I, okay, 2 things. I really enjoy Spotify. 2, I wish Spotify would pay their artists more. So one of my playlists that I really like is like a house music playlist, and when songs come up that use a lot of like derogatory language or maybe talk about things that are very sexual or like high in drug use, like because the thing, if okay, if you're into house music or EDM or whatever, you probably know that there's a huge drug and like sex aspect of that culture. Not all of it, but it exists. And so there are songs that talk about that stuff, like, anyways, I have to cut that stuff out because I don't want to be listening to that. I don't want to be thinking about it. I don't want it to be bouncing around in my head. So I have to remove from playlists or don't play or whatever because I don't want to consume that stuff because it's not going to help me. Like, what is me listening to songs about like tripping off E helping me? It's not helping me at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have no interest of those those kind of experiences. That's just for me. So I'm not. If that's your thing, go for it. If you have movies or TV shows that aren't any good for your soul, don't pull them. Don't pull them up on Netflix. Don't spend your money to see it in theaters. It'll be difficult at first, but the more you cut it out and the more you start to curate your life, it gets easier. 3. Add more good. Once you started cutting things out of your world, you must replace it with something good. I think that's the hard part for a lot of people, even as Christians and believers, as they're growing in their walk. Sometimes they just want to cut off everything, but they never replace it with anything better. So then they start to feel empty or bored with their life. No, there's a lot of good stuff out there that you can enjoy. Whether you have to look and find some new influences or invest more in the good that's already in your life, you have to swap out the bad for the good. If there are books and blogs that aren't helping you live beneficial, cut them out and replace them with more beneficial ones. If it's a YouTube channel, you can continue to watch my YouTube channel. Hopefully, it's helpful for you. And there are other great YouTubers out there who are sharing things that help us to become better men and just better people in general. If you're spending too much time with folks who are only choking the fruit of your soul, cut them out and pursue more beneficial relationships, whether that's using something like meetup fellowships at church or other community groups, or even places like shout out to Themis and Thoth. His channel has a lot of good stuff. Go and check his out. Hang out there. It could also be more. It could also be more alone time with God. Be sure to add more good to your life. And lastly, 4, protect your ground. Once you've started consuming more beneficial things, it is important to guard your ground, your soul, all the things that you take in. You must protect your soul from things that could interfere with the fruit you're trying to bear. Protecting yourself from bad influences doesn't mean sticking your head in the ground or avoiding reality. There are some things that happen in the world we'd rather not deal with, but those things need our attention at times. We must guard ourselves from what's going to keep us from living in vibrant excellence. Um, Conflict, the news, and similar things may be unpleasant to entertain, yet those very things can urge us to be bear more fruit for others. Okay, got it. Sorry, I haven't read this in a while. But yeah, so there, for example, as a black man, learning about femicide, black femicide, is hard to listen to. But it's important to listen to encourage me, and I would believe other black men, to actually go and serve our community better and to take care of our community and to strive to be better men. It may be hard to face it, but there are things that we need to face so that we can make better decisions in our lives. The process of curating our lives takes time. It's not something that can be done overnight. It requires honesty, hard work, and patience. It's worth it to help us on our journey towards becoming beneficial men. And that was the blog post. But what are you all saying in the chat? Okay. Hi to everybody who's hanging out here. I appreciate it. Thank you all. Seriously, thank you all. Afro Butterflies asks, do you feel pressure to be an even better man because of so many pookies running around? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think, okay, so one of the reasons I this whole concept of like the beneficial black man kind of came up was as I was being more exposed to, the pookies running around and the manosphere stuff and all this, the things that not only exist online but exist in real life. I realized that being just a nice guy and just being a good guy wasn't enough. Because there are a lot of men who think, well, I'm not them, I'm not doing those things. That's good enough. But if you don't actually push back against the negativity, if you don't push back against those bad things, it'll keep growing. And I think life really is like a garden. Like it really is, agricultural. A lot of stuff that we see in nature applies to like our society and our community. And if you want a nice garden, you have to cut the weeds out. You have to get rid of the things. You have to get rid of the pests, all the stuff that's messing up your community. And I think for a lot of men, they've been resting on their laurels because they think, oh, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm doing enough here. I have my relationship. I have my kids or whatever. I'm not in trouble. I don't have kids. Whatever it is may be the case, but they don't engage and make an effort to make sure the rest of the garden, the rest of our community is okay. And so weeds have just been growing up all around us. And I think that's why it's important for us to become beneficial. So it's not just, oh, I'm okay, I'm good, but I'm actually now going out and I'm engaging the things that are around me. I'm being useful to make change for the community. And so, yes, I do feel pressure to be an even better man within my home, within my marriage, and everywhere else I go. And I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Let's see. Cool. Wait, was this to me? If you partake, please be safe. Was that about the E? I'm I'm not that I don't think that's gonna happen, darling. Um no, I don't think you have to apologize. I just I think it's necessary in the season that we're in. Like work just needs to be done. It is what it is. But yes, thank you all. Let's see. I hope that makes sense. I hope that those are useful tools because again, I think we really do have to be mindful of the things that we take in and things that we put on display, and so we need to assess if things are good or bad. We need to cut out the bad stuff, bring in more good stuff, and protect what's here. Because I think even making an impact on our community starts with protecting ourselves. And I believe that it's the role of men in our community to serve and protect and to be there. and to make things better. Um, Thank you all for joining me for this live. I appreciate it. I'm still working on how to end my in my broadcast. I will say this. Um, Earlier this month or last month, I asked you all for help in naming the title of a book that I was working on. And thank you for that. Thank you for that. And so I want to offer that if you're interested in getting the book that I wrote, um, it's available on Amazon. You can get a paperback or you can get it in Kindle, but it's called Make Bad Days Good, a set of simple tools to take control of your life. And so if you are someone or if you know someone who kind of struggles with the ups and downs of life, if you just feel like you just keep having bad days and you're having a hard time in life and you need help navigating it, this is what this book is for. It's just things that I've learned in my own life to help navigate the highs and lows of life. And you don't have to do it alone. So yeah, the name of the book is Make Bad Days Good, a set of simple tools to take control of your life. And so there's a paperback version and a Kindle version, depending on whichever one you prefer. And it's not that long of a book, but hopefully a lot of the information and resources are there to be helpful. On that note, though, I'm gonna leave. So, black man, you're called for more than mediocre living. You're here for a purpose, to live for glory and for the good of others. Let's do the work to keep choosing to become beneficial for our community. Protect your mental, find time for an emotional release valve, and keep striving to become beneficial. I believe in you, black man. Go make something for yourself, of yourself, and for glory and for good. And thank you all for joining me today. Thank you, ladies, too, for your support. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. If it's nice where you are, get some sunshine. Go get some blues and greens. The window's over here, so that's why I'm looking that way. But get some blues and greens in your life. Take some deep breaths and all that stuff. But y'all stay safe. Talk to you later. Peace.